Shut up and sit down.
Namaste friends, I'm Simon.
I'm Ellie.
And if you enjoy our videos, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and of course, hit that bell thing. That would be very kind of you indeed. And tonight, as with every night, we're being surprised by you guys, our viewers, who have recommended we check out certain movies and film our reactions to the trailers of those movies.
So what trailer do we have coming up next?
Well, our viewers picked up in some of our recent videos that you are a big fan of what you call women having agency in movies. Essentially, girl power. Especially we checked out Commando 3 that had two women seriously kicking butt. And when we covered the trailer for Panipat, we were talking about how awesome it was to see female warriors and female leaders. And our viewers said to us, well, you know what? If you like seeing female warriors and female leaders, there is a movie you must check out. It's called Manikarnika, Queen of Jhansi. It's a Hindi language Bollywood movie that came out in 2019 and did extraordinarily well at the box office. Now, this movie is actually based on a real historical figure, and you know how much I love historical-based movies. This is actually based on a woman who was called Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi, who was a Maratha warrior queen who was a leading figure in the Indian Rebellion of 1857, and even after her death became a symbol of the Indian Rebellion against the British Raj. So hugely important historical figure. Now, this movie not only was directed by, but also starred Kangana Ranaut as the warrior queen herself. And, as if that wasn't brave enough, her first ever screening was to the President of India. And thankfully he liked it in a private screening. So, as I said, this movie did incredibly well internationally. It's the most successful movie ever that's been female-led and focused on a female character. So, I think that gets me pretty excited. How about you?
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and check out the trailer right now. If you want to see what we think about it, then stick around until the end. But for now,
let's go.
Let's go.
अंग्रेजी सरकार गिद्धों की तरह झांसी पर नजर गाड़े बैठी है। अगर झांसी को सही समय रहते उत्तराधिकारी नहीं मिला, तो ये झांसी को भी हड़प लेंगे।
Wow.
एक लड़की देखी है, जिसकी हमें खोज थी।
Oh my God. Jeez.
Manikarnika.
Wow.
कन्या कैसे कलाइयाँ घुमाती है? मैं दिखाती हूँ।
Oh my God.
देखा दीक्षित जी, हमारी मनु सबसे अलग है। आपकी मनु अब झांसी की हो चुकी है। परंपरा के अनुसार नया नाम दिया जाएगा लक्ष्मी।
मैं लक्ष्मी बाई प्रतिज्ञा करती हूँ, जब तक मेरे शरीर में रक्त है, मैं पूर्ण निष्ठा से झांसी की सेवा करूँगी।
लक्ष्मी बाई को कंपनी चेतावनी देती है कि जल्दी महल खाली कर दे।
मैं अपनी झांसी नहीं दूंगी।
झांसी को अंग्रेजों ने शमशान बना डाला।
देश से है प्यार तो
सब कुछ मिट गया। अब किसके लिए लड़ेंगे हम?
हर पल ये कहना चाहिए,
हमारा पहला प्यार मातृभूमि नहीं है क्या लक्ष्मी?
मैं रहूं या ना रहूं, भारत ये रहना चाहिए।
हम लड़ेंगे ताकि आने वाली पीढ़ियां अपनी आजादी का उत्सव मनाए। हम लड़ेंगे और छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज के स्वराज के सपने को पुनः जीवित करेंगे।
जब बेटी उठ खड़ी होती है, तभी विजय बड़ी होती है।
आज के लिए नहीं, आप कल के लिए लड़ रहे हैं।
अंग्रेजी सत्ता तुम्हारी मिसाल बनाना चाहती है, लटकाना चाहती है तुम्हारे कटे हुए सर को झांसी में।
मैं वो मशाल बनूंगी जो हर भारतीय के अंदर आजादी की भूख बनकर दहकेगी।
Wow. Wow.
झांसी आप भी चाहते हैं और मैं भी। फर्क सिर्फ इतना है, आपको राज करना है और मुझे अपनों की सेवा।
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Wow, yeah, wow, indeed. That literally gave me goosebumps watching it. I think, especially knowing that this is a real historical figure of such importance in the Indian freedom fighting movement. So, and now it's clear why, like the role she played. And, you know, as well, I think we're just starting to learn really more and more about the Maratha Empire, the importance of the saffron flag. Like, there's so much symbolism that we're just now starting to understand that's in these kind of movies, that just, you know, thinking about movies like Tanaji the Unsung Warrior and Kesari and movies like that, you know, they get me every single time. And yet this one, I think, just dialed it up to 11 because it's a woman who's, I mean, not only incredibly ferocious and brave and unrelenting, but is able to still be a woman and a mother and feminine at the same time, and be wearing traditional clothes and be beautiful, and yet just harrying to the British troops, which, my goodness, my mind is blown by how amazing that trailer was. What did you think of it?
It was really powerful to watch, and I think the other element that, like you were saying about kind of when we've seen the rise of kind of oppressed peoples in these movies and people fighting back, I feel like so much of Indian history is being suppressed in terms of how much is widely known, and I really like seeing people who are able to tell their own stories in movies and seeing that have such a broad audience, and so it gets widespread and those stories get told, you know, or the heroes that have been lost to history because of people oppressing the history of India. And it's really powerful to see those stories being told, and especially when it's about women who have been kind of additionally oppressed. It's really powerful to see that and to see those stories.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much, and clearly, you know, we grew up in the United Kingdom where the education system tells the version of history that they want told. So, you know, we really didn't know much at all about the British Raj or even really the expansion of the British Empire. They tell you the story as if it's, you know, explorers going out and discovering these amazing new lands and then colonizing them as if, you know, people are just savages. But of course they don't tell you about the oppression and the slavery and the atrocities against other human beings. So yeah, I find it's both useful and necessary to hear these kind of stories as a British person who comes from that background.
It kind of feels like an obligation, like because we grew up with being told such an untrue story of how that unfolded. It feels like it's our responsibility to learn the truth and to figure out what actually happened and to understand more about the legacy of how the British changed the world. And we were presented as it bringing civilization to places and kind of educating people, and that's just not true. It was just horrific genocide that happened.
Yeah, I think the only history of India that I ever learned through my entire education as a kid was the story of Gandhi. And non-violent protest and that stuff, but even that story was told in a very skewed way. So yeah, it's such a tiny piece of the whole history. But anyway, Manikarnika, you know, the other things that really blew me away in this are typically when you see women fighting in movies, they use a bow and arrow or they have some small dagger and they, you know, sneak around and stab someone with it. In this, she's got two legit massive swords and she's wielding them with such power that she literally cleaves through a guy's skull. I mean, yeah, just talk about breaking the stereotype of female warriors in movies. That I thought was incredible to see.
And that she was leading the army as well. Like, she was leading the charge. She wasn't the spouse of a powerful leader who had some really good ideas and, you know, could stick up for herself in a fight. Like, she was leading it. She didn't need anyone else in her life kind of to give her legitimacy. She just took it, and everybody respected that. And I loved the costumes that she wore as well, when she went from kind of being like a princess type figure, and she was wearing really incredible robes, and then she became the warrior and was then kind of wearing like warrior garb that was kind of protective, also allowed her to move, but it just made her look incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And the thought that she not only starred in this movie, but also directed it as well. Like, I mean, because the directing looks incredible. It looks like an S.S. Rajamouli style fantasy epic movie, and yet it's historically accurate, and it's directed by the star. I cannot believe how amazing this looks.
I'm wondering how much that she had that kind of control over the movie and the vision that she was able to bring out. I'm wondering how much that enabled, like how she represented the Queen, and how like giving her that kind of power and depth of the performance, it being directed by a woman, if that was kind of part of it, if she was able to give it that kind of feel.
Maybe, yeah, who knows? But it was like what we were saying when we saw the trailer for Panipat. I feel like there must have been some moments in history where women needed to seek permission to step into positions of power, I guess. But there are also times like this where your homeland, your motherland is being invaded. And of course the Queen is going to go to battle. Of course any ruler would go to battle, and any person would be, because they're seeing their people being slaughtered in the thousands, and you know that either you're going to go fight them or you're going to be next and you're going to die. So, like, what choice do you have? And I do think it still requires just an incredible amount of bravery to just go fight someone who is, you know, outnumbers you, is much better armed, but just through your ferocity and your bravery, you can go and just ride out against them. That story just gets me every single time. So it reminded me a lot of Braveheart, but if William Wallace in Braveheart had been female, which I can't even imagine that in medieval Scotland. So I'm almost speechless, but as you can tell, not quite. The other thing I've started to notice, because when we reacted recently to the Radha title track with Salman Khan, you noticed a ton of saffron in there in terms of saris and sashes, and then there were the other colours of the Indian flag blended in there. Even I, like as dumb as I am and as blinkered as I am, even I noticed the amount of saffron in this movie. And, you know, she was a queen of the Maratha Empire, which saffron was their flag, but there were so many other places where she was wearing a saffron robe, or she had a saffron thing tied to her sword, or so yeah, even someone as dumb as me managed to pick up on that. So I loved seeing that in here as well. Well, there you go. I feel like we could talk about this all day. I just kind of want to go watch it now. It looks amazing. But thank you so very, very much for recommending Manikarnika.
Definitely a good choice.
Yeah, and people have been recommending this for a while. I just don't know why. We have so many recommendations that are thrown our way, and songs and scenes and all sorts of things. So this was on the list for a while. We just didn't quite get round to it, but I am so glad we did. So thank you for recommending it, and thank you for your patience. And we will see you next time, friends, on the next Dork Trailer Ambush.
Peace out, nerds.
Bye.
Shut up and sit down.